Hello, welcome back to the Starters Podcast. I'm Dave Trentadue. That is George and Simon. How's it going, boys?
Going on, Dave?
Feeling
Going
great.
well.
Feeling
Perfect.
great.
Perfect. This podcast is brought to you by Club CDL. Go check out clubcdl.com for all your summer options. Their outdoor clay courts will be opening soon, so stay tuned for that. They have amazing options, so go to clubcdl.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and subscribe to us on YouTube at The Starters 690. All right, question number one, brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. Their 20-year anniversary is underway. It's as of May 1st, they turned 20, and it's the best chicken wing spot in town, and they have all sorts of great discounts, especially on Sleeman beer for the month of May. So check them out at Cunningham's Pub on Instagram. All right, guys, question number one, very, very simple. NFL draft. Simon, I know you're happy, but I want to know who won the NFL draft.
Who won the NFL draft? That's a great question.
Thank you.
I'm gonna say, I think there's a couple of teams. Like, I know that the Steelers did really well, but it's hard, right? Like they drafted, they solidified their O-line, and it's not a sexy pick. The Bears did that last year, and it's not a name that jumps out at you. It's not somebody that was in contention for a Heisman Trophy or anything along those lines. I'm going to go with two teams, and they're both playing the same division. I'll go with the Bears. They got a quarterback. They got what they believe is a wide receiver as well. And I like what the Vikings did. They were proactive. They moved up. I'm not a big J.J. McCarthy guy, but again, I'm not an NFL scout, so leave me out of this conversation. But the fact that they moved up, they know that they have two elite wide receivers, maybe the best 1-2 punch in football. They got themselves a good tight end, make some plays on defense. They just had to get something out of the quarterback position. I think Sam Darnold, if memory serves me well, might be the only quarterback they had on the roster. So they got better in that spot. So I'll say go with the NFC North teams. Got a lot better, the Vikings and the Bears.
All right, George?
I'm going to echo the sentiments of Simon on this one. The Bears got the number one player in the draft, and Caleb Williams, who was projected to go first since pretty much his sophomore year. And then they were able to acquire, in my opinion, probably the third best player in the draft, who, by the way, his first name is pronounced Rome. Did you know that? Rome, not Rome. Rome. Didn't know that. Look, I love what they did. I love the players they got. I think the Bears are instantly better. If gun to my head, if I had to pick a second team that really did well, I think the Kansas City Chiefs somehow found a way to manipulate the Bills into giving them their pick so that they can draft a need. And I don't understand why the Bills did that. It makes no sense to me. The Montreal Canadiens would never trade their pick to the Boston Bruins, and the Boston Bruins would never trade it to the Canadiens or the Maple Leafs. And we would never see this in any other sport. No idea what the Bills are thinking on that one. So if I have to say two teams that won the draft, I like what Kansas City did, getting Worthy from Texas. Fills a need that they really, really had. Not sure if he would have been there if they hadn't got that pick. And look, the Bears got, I think, 1 and 3 in the draft. So anytime you can get that type of talent, you're getting a quarterback for the next 10 years and a receiver for the next 10 years. Chicago Bears, easy pick.
All right. Perfect. That's very, very good answers to that question. All right. Question number two, brought to you by Christina's Cuisine. Obviously, Greek Easter just around the corner on this weekend, and they have some catering options for you. So if you go check them out, Christina's Cuisine on Instagram, they have some amazing, check out their stories, especially today's story. It looks absolutely delicious. They have something that's going to be ready, platters and stuff that are going to be ready as of Saturday. So check them out at Christina's Cuisine. All right, guys, let's switch gears over to the NBA playoffs. Heck of a series coming up between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. Is this going to be, I just want to know, will the winner of this series, is that the team that's taking it out? Is this kind of like the de facto NBA finals?
Is this the final? Absolutely, it's the final. I think one of these two teams is winning the NBA championship, no doubt about it. Look, Denver did it last year. Ric Flair said it best: to be the man, you got to beat the man. They're the man. The Timberwolves are the up-and-comer. They got, Karl Anthony Towns. They got they got a bunch of good young players and Rudy Gobert there. And it's one or the other. And I just think whoever wins this one, it's gonna be curtains for the other teams. And I don't see another team, definitely not a team in the East that can compete. I don't think the Celtics can. So I'm gonna say one of these two teams is gonna be the NBA champions.
All right. What you want to wager a guess or a prediction or?
Gun to my head, I'm gonna say Denver does it again.
All right. Simon?
Look, two great teams. Both are carrying their own versions of a big three, but I think that those rosters are even deeper than that. It's going to be interesting to see Jokic go here. The last time we saw him play against, I don't know, I'm trying to think the last time he went up against this much size was probably in the bubble against the Lakers. He played well, but the Lakers got the better of the Nuggets in that series. That was a much younger Nuggets squad, of course. But look, Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, that's 7 feet and 7 feet.
Yep.
One guy who's elite on defense. Again, I don't think you get the better of Jokic, but maybe it's one of those things where you can just try to keep him in check. I just don't know about from a defensive standpoint. Edwards is such a matchup to match up against. We'll see what the Nuggets can do there. But yeah, I'm with George here. The Timberwolves are a must-watch. It's unfortunate this is not a Western Conference final. Not take away nothing from Shea and his Oklahoma City squad, but this would have been an outstanding Western Conference final. And I'll say this about the Celtics: they might get out of the East a lot easier than the Nuggets and the Timberwolves get out of the West. They might make quick work of anybody. I don't think the East is particularly strong. Just keep an eye on the Kristaps Porzingis injury. He left the game yesterday. I think he's massive for that team, so keep an eye on that. But I will take the upstart Timberwolves against the Denver Nuggets.
All right. Let's switch gears back to the NHL playoffs. But first off, this question number 3 brought to you by Fresh MTL. Fresh MTL just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. There's a nice, crisp-looking video on their Instagram page, pretty much highlighting everything they offer. They have catering, healthy meal, prep service, pretty much bistro grab and go, and Simon gets his smoothies from there all the time.
Morning booster.
Morning booster, and that's how he looks so good this late at night, every night. So check him out at Fresh MTL on Instagram. All right, guys, round 1 almost done. Just 3 series left, but I just want to know for now, what has been the biggest surprise for you in round 1 of the NHL playoffs?
The absolute positive no-show from the Winnipeg Jets, and specifically Connor Hellebuck. And I know there's a stat out there that has, nobody made more saves than him, or nobody's faced more shots than him in round number 1. I get that, still, giving up 6. I believe the scoring went 6 goals, 5 goals, 6 goals, 5 goals, and maybe 6 again in the last game. I like this Jets team. I like the Toffoli. I like the Monahan acquisitions. Scheifele's for real. They have a legitimate number 1 on the blue line. You would think they've got a little bit of bite, some nastiness. And again, their goaltending, and they're one of maybe the few teams that went into these postseasons absolutely content with their goaltending position. Again, the guy's 2 months away from winning, I believe, his second Vezina trophy. And there's nothing wrong with losing to the Avalanche. But 2 weeks before the season was done, or maybe like 9 days before the season was done, Winnipeg went to Colorado and beat them 7-0 in a meaningful game. They were still trying to fight for the second and third spot in that division. The winner gets that division. The second spot, you host the other guy. And the Jets went on to win, I believe, 7 games in a row to close off the season. That drubbing of the Avalanche. And then you fast forward, they gave up 6 goals in game number 1. You think, oh, right, you still won, and Connor Hellebuck's going to bounce back. He didn't. So I'm hard-pressed to find anything more disappointing than the Jets as a collective in this first round.
Smart. George?
So your question, most surprising thing, I listen, we're stand Thursday, May 2nd at 11:01 currently, and I'll tell you, there is no bigger story right now than Joseph Woll. And there's no bigger surprise because Joseph Woll was on the bench. The Maple Leafs look like a beaten squad. They look like a squad that had been tormented by Marchand and the Bruins. And Matthews on the bench. There seems to be all sorts of internal problems going on the bench during that game, game 4, I believe. And all of a sudden, we stand here tonight, and Joseph Wall's got 2 wins, and he's looked fantastic and virtually unbeatable, if not for a 0.1 second shutout breaking goal at the end. He's the biggest surprise. The Toronto Maple Leafs, that they're able to force a Game 7, is the biggest surprise, because if we go back to the end of Game 4, all of us are saying this one's done. It's packed up. We're giving them very little chance. Then we hear Austin Matthews not playing in Game 5. We're like, this one's really done. And we're headed to Game 7 in Boston. And I think it's the best series thus far, no doubt about it. And everything about Joseph Wall and the Toronto Maple Leafs right now is surprising ever since Game 4.
All right. Well, I like that answer a lot. There's a Leaf logo if you look down at the questions bar. So we'll elaborate a little bit more on that in just a second. But I like those answers, guys. We'll move on to question number 4, brought to you by EA Fitness. They're holding a free trial this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. You can go train with Elias. Elias seems to be a guy that everybody, I mean, like, he seems like a celebrity over there. Everybody talks about Elias. So you could go at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday. Join him for a free trial.
I'll be there, Dave.
You'll be there?
I'll be there. Man.
All right. So you can train
Saturdays. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know if you can come train with me. I don't think you should. I don't think you should be doing that. I think you should be pushing yourself a little bit more than I do. But I'll be Saturday at 10:30.
Nice. All right. Well, there you go. Meet Simon Tsalikis at EA Fitness on Saturday at 10:30. Check them out, eafitness.inc. They have one heck of a promotion going on right now. So just check them out. I promise you won't want to miss it. All right, we're going to switch gears to the Montreal Canadiens right now, and a lot of talk in the off season. There's a free agent who has deep roots and connections with the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, Marty St. Louis, and Vincent Lecavalier, and his name is Steven Stamkos. And there's a bit of a buzz in the air about where he's going to land and where he's going to go, and is he a fit on the Canadiens? So I want to know, guys, what are the odds the Habs land Steven Stamkos?
Yeah. You want a percentage on this, Dave?
You don't. Yeah, sure. Give me a percentage.
So I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say 40%.
40.
I'm going to say 40%. And the reason I'm going to say 40% is because it is not out of the realm of just possible that Tampa Bay looks at their roster, looks at how much money they have locked in, and are like, we don't want to give I believe he's 35 now, if I'm not mistaken, a 35-year-old had a 36-year-old a 3 or 4 year contract, which he could probably get, at $10 million a season. And then I go, where would he go? And I'm like, there's too many connections, whether it's Lecavalier, as you mentioned, or Martin St. Louis here in Montreal. It's not far from where he grew up. There's a lot of familiarness to Montreal, having given the Montreal-Tampa Bay rivalry that's been going on in the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm going to say 40%, and I'm being optimistic. I get that, because I think, there's still that 60% that says, Tampa Bay does the right thing and gives the guy that scored, I think he scored 40-something goals this year, gives him his $10 million and finishes his career as a Tampa Bay Lightning. But there is a world where Tampa Bay pivots, says no, and he comes to Montreal.
Wow. Simon?
Yeah, that's crazy talk. I'm going to say
we need more of that on this one.
I'm going to say there's a 4% chance that if I'm Steven Stamkos, I just sit across Martin St. Louis and Vincent Lecavalier, respectively, and I'll ask him both the same question, and I'll wait for their answer. Boys, you want me to come here? Great. Okay, Nick Suzuki, all these things. Boys, just one question. You are both from here. How come you guys never came here? Like, what? Vinny? Little Bizarre boy? Martin St. Louis? Family lives down the street from my house in St. Dorothy. How come you guys never came? Well, why do you want me to come to your team when you guys didn't want to come here? Stop. I'd love to have him. I would take him on a 3-year deal. I would overpay him. I just think, look, he came off a 40-goal season. Sidney Crosby continues to play at a high level at his age. I don't think the age is a factor as much as it was, maybe 10, 15 years ago. I still think you can, if he's not going to go from 40 goals to 21 goals. I think even if you were to go to 30 goals, just everything else that comes with Steven Stamkos, a professional, consummate professional, Stanley Cup champion, played in big games, Team Canada, everything else that goes with it, I would give him that 3-year deal. Just make Nick Suzuki's life a little easier when it comes to just playing against the other team's top lines. Make Nick Suzuki's life a little easier when it comes to dealing with the officials, whatever. But at this point in your career, I gotta think you're chasing cups. You're not chasing dollars, because if you're chasing dollars, he's just gonna pick one of those beautiful American destinations where you're not getting taxed at a 50% clip. So,
but Simon, the caveat, right, is that if Tampa were to pivot, would that give Montreal, an upper hand? You don't think they'd give it an upper hand on
like George? They couldn't land Vincent Lecavalier, Martin St. Louis. Like they couldn't land these Daniel Briere in his prime. They couldn't get those guys to come. Gauthier knew they couldn't get in their prime, and now they're going to get Steven Stamkos, and definitely not in his prime. But still, let's not kid ourselves. 40-goal season and 5 goals in the playoffs. And I just don't. If you're Steven Stamkos, why? You want to rebuild? Like, this team's not I don't think they're a playoff team next year.
Money.
Not money, George.
Money.
George.
I mean, the Canadians are going to be willing to give.
Well, what do you think
10,
they want?
11?
Let's just say a number for easy mathematics.
I'll say 10 million. I'll say that.
Easy math at 10 million.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you probably have to pay him in Tampa Bay? 7.75?
Yeah.
That's
right. No. That's why I think Tampa's got definitely the inside track.
If the Habs were like in that Red Wings position, mid-years playoffs by a point or two, yes. Then I'd even say overpay him, man, because there's value to what he brings to a club. But I don't think the Canadians are a playoff team next year. And again, I would like to see him, but I'm just saying from Steven Stamkos' standpoint, he's not on the back line in his career. He's on the back 4 or 5 holes of his careers. And I don't think
Look, I'm just gonna go back to the days of Mark Messier signing with Vancouver, and it leaves me to say anything is possible. Because back then, Mark Messier had played with the Rangers. Everybody saw him as a big market kind of guy. It wasn't going to go.
But the Messier went to a good club, George.
Yes, he did, and he went for a lot of bucks. So in a no salary cap, we agree.
Stamkos is going to a team that highly likely will picking again for the second year in a row, top 5 in an NHL entry draft. If the Canadians were even the Sabres, or if the Canadians were like the Penguins on the cusp of making the playoffs, I think it would be more enticing for Steven Stamkos. He is not going to sign anywhere where he doesn't believe. I'm just me speculating. I don't think he signs anywhere where he doesn't believe there's a ticket punched to the postseason.
I don't know. I can convince you to do some crazy stuff, and I think you can convince me to do some crazy stuff. I think I could call you and tell you, hey, Simon, I need some help. We're gonna swim across this lake here today, and you might come because it's me. Maybe that's the case with Martin St. Louis and Vincent Lecavalier. Let me dream in my little world here.
Terrible example. Listen, I like him. I just don't see why he would come here. And because it's not like the Habs are going to be the only offer.
No.
Yeah. Well,
it's
one of those moves that makes sense if you're looking at it from like the bubble of Montreal and the Canadiens world. But if you're Steven Stamkos, it doesn't really make any sense.
Habs were closer to a playoff spot. I think
it'd be different.
He's got as good a chance as anybody else. But I think he's looked at the 7 or 8 worst teams in the league, and he said, no, at this age and what have I accomplished? He like most players of his stature, you're chasing rings, nothing else.
All right, we'll move on to the last question, guys. And it might be unprofessional of me, but I made these graphics at about 3 p.m. today just so I could be ready for the show. And this graphic was made and loaded already. All right, I had no backup plan. All right, so it may have been unprofessional had it not happened, but the Leafs pulled it off. Question number 5 brought to you by Resto Vivaldi, best bring your own wine restaurant in Montreal. Check them out at Resto Vivaldi on Instagram. Guys, very simple. Saturday night, Toronto, Boston. It doesn't get any better than this. Game 7, who wins?
I hate doing this because I picked the Bruins at the beginning of the series, so it'd be foolish for me to say, Toronto just because it's in Game 7. I'm just gonna bank this on. I was on the morning show with Sean Starr. I said the Leafs would win today because the sporting gods at some point stop punishing you, and they're like 6 losses at home in a row in the playoffs. They stop punishing you. You get to Game 7. I believe the sports gods, the hockey gods specifically, will allow I think 0-6 or 0-7 in their last 6 or 7 elimination games. The Bruins.
6, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, and I'm cheering for the Leafs. I'm gonna say there's no way, very incredible, that a very very good hockey team blows a 3-1 series lead 2 years in a row. That's madness. So I'm gonna say that simply just can't happen. We haven't seen that in our lifetime. They've been playing hockey for 250 years. We've never seen it. I don't know if we're going to see it as of Saturday, because if it does, that's just messed up, man. That's just messed up.
George?
Mark Twain said the rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated, and I think the Maple Leafs got something going right now. And you add the number one goal scorer in the NHL in this lineup, and suddenly I'm a believer. And I just think Boston doesn't look right. And they had the swag, they had the kind of leaning on the Leafs a little bit. You had Marchand just seemed to be in everybody's head. Sheldon Keefe had to talk about Marchand after game 2, which to me is almost a white flag as to, look, help us out here, refs, because this guy is like doing whatever he wants out there. I just think the Leafs seem to have the right recipe right now. Always hard to win a game 7, but even harder to win it in an opposition's building when you've been down 3-1, because it's taking you a lot just to come back into the series. And now you've got to get that win at somebody else's building. A very tall task, but they won the last 2 games without Austin Matthews. If I take the best player out of the Boston Bruins, and you can take your pick, whether that's Brad Marchand or Charlie McAvoy or whomever you may think is the best player of the Boston Bruins, they have no chance. And Toronto somehow did it. And the guys that had to have great games, the guys that had all the pressure on them, because nobody had more pressure than Nylander, Tavares, and Marner. Nobody. Those 3 guys had Toronto and Pearson Airport and Danforth Street and the entire Ontario province on their shoulders, and somehow they managed to get to game 7. I'm not going to bet against them. I'm going to take the Leafs, and I think it might be even like a 3-1, 3-4-1. Let's go Toronto.
Oh, wow. It's funny because like Matthews' absence, I mean, no guarantee he even plays on Saturday, but it almost like forced the Leafs to play playoff type hockey, right?
It's great you bring that up. Okay, so that's actually a great point you just made, Dave, because I was talking to my friend who's a Leafs fan, diehard Leafs fan, loves the Leafs, and he said to me before we even knew if Matthews was going to play Game 6, he said, "I actually prefer Matthews doesn't play," which was crazy to me. It sounded insane to me because you're talking about 70 goals you're taking off a team, but he's like, they play a different game when he's not there, because they're forced to play a different game. They're not leaning on anybody. They're not waiting for someone to carry them. They have to skate, or they know they're done. So that's an interesting point you bring up.
Yeah, and if they could just combine that effort, and when he does make his return, if they could still continue that style, I think they're in for something special on Saturday, though. But that's it, boys. Thanks a lot for joining me, and have a good night. And we'll see who's right next week on who's going to win Game 7. Thanks for listening, guys. Follow us at the Starters 690. Thanks, boys.
Ciao, boys.